Guys, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Nikki, and I'm bringing you another Reprogram Your Thinking video where I want to cause you to think about what you're allowing to dwell in your spirit. Guys, I got a great video for you today. I have been doing this series on the works of the flesh, and I've entitled it Ready or Not, Cultivating a Heart for God's Return. Now, in this series, I have really been looking at the works of the flesh, and what prompted me to do it more and more, because I think about that. Are we preparing ourselves for Jesus's return, or do we focus more on trying to get through to selfish, heartless people who don't know that, just really don't know that they're hurting people? And it's not to give people a pass, but it's to really to help us understand that some people just don't know. That's why Jesus was able to say, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do." And it's hard to take that attitude with people who continuously hurt you. And it's understandable. It's understandable to be hurt and to react. But today I want to talk about fleshly fury, unpacking the outburst of wrath. Now, 3 points I want to make. You can't take it back. Your actions are hurtful to you and others, and the regret. Now, I've had these feelings on multiple occasions, because when I'm at work and I have a moment where someone upsets me, and I get angry and I say any and everything in that moment. Now, I don't go so far as to where I black out, where I don't know what I'm saying. But when I seem to be upset, everybody thinks I'm upset. But because it's the way that I look, and my aggression, my tone, and in that moment, I know I can't take it back. But then I don't want to seem like I'm crazy, because then I want to return to, my calm state, and I want to come back as if nothing hadn't happened. And that's what I want to deal with today. The unpacking the outburst of wrath. Now, you can't take it back. Basically what I was just talking about. Society deems you crazy when you have just outbursts, like outrageous outbursts, when you're just angry and you feel justified. You tell yourself that somebody did something and it warranted you having that reaction. Now, the works of the flesh, Paul broke it down, and in studying this, it was a preacher talking about this in me studying. I was watching a video that was speaking to the works of the flesh, and he said that Paul broke it down and didn't just make a general statement about the works of the flesh, because we need to understand that being specific is important with God. He is specific in everything that he does. Because you have people now today, they say it all the time. Everybody's falling short and everybody has sinned, and you are absolutely right. But when it comes to the works of the flesh, when you justify allowing your flesh to take charge, it not only hurts you, but it hurts others. And I'll talk about that later. But you don't want to look crazy when you have these outbursts of rage and wrath. and then you putting your energy into making somebody feel your pain, so to speak. And they're not concerned. They're moving forward. And then in some outbursts, you can't take it back, and then you damage relationships, good relationships with people that, you know, didn't mean you any harm. But your mindset of thinking that when you're upset and you feel justified about being upset, you don't take time to sit back, process the situation, and then say what needs to be said. You know, not in your anger, because in your anger you will say a lot of things that will be hurtful, and you can't take them back. You can't take back certain words. You may call someone out of their name. You may, in your anger, decide that you're gonna tell your a deep dark secret of one of your friends. And if you are a friend and they trusted you, and in your anger and in your outburst, you let go of a deep dark secret that they told you, and now they can never trust you again with any information. So it's very important to understand that even when you feel as though you have the right to be upset, you still have to use wisdom in how you approach that situation that upsets you. And you need to make sure that you don't damage relationships, because when you damage relationships, I'll talk about it later, that it leads to you being in a bad place. Now, emotionally charged responses put you in the seat of a sinner. Point blank, period. Even when you feel like you have every right to be upset, you have every right to say whatever comes to your mind, you are being placed in a position where you're putting yourself in a bad place with God, not with people, but with God. Because if someone says something, let's just say a person, you already know their personality, you know that they're capable of certain things, and you may say, hey, that person just, they're mean anyway, they're hateful anyway, they're spiteful. You have all of these uh ideals of that person, and you still in that moment decide to stoop to their level, and then you justify it, but you're no better than them. And I could give you a prime example. Joy Reid was let go at MSNBC, and Megyn Kelly decided to mock her and make fun of her crying. Now, I didn't follow Joy Reid, and I don't follow Megyn Kelly, and I don't know a lot of things that they've done in their capacity of being a journalist. But some of the things that I have seen on Joy Reid, it doesn't make Megyn Kelly any better than her if she's deciding to say, well, basically that's what you get because you are a bad person. For us to have that mentality, it's just like if something happens to the who we deem to be the worst person in the world. If we have that attitude of that's what they get, we're no better than them. And that puts us in the seat of a sinner. So when our wrath is when we decide to give out our wrath to someone and try to pour out our wrath on someone, we're putting ourselves and sitting in the seat of a sinner. And you don't have to believe that, but it's very important to understand that where we think we're doing good enough, we're not. We have work to do, and that's why we're still here. Now, your actions are harmful to you and others. My second point. They're harmful to you because you then will be pulled away from God. And what I mean by that is because I said you will be sitting in the seat of sinners. God does not deal with sin. That's why Jesus said, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, which means, my God, why have you forsaken me? Because he did not deal with the sin that Jesus had taken upon himself. So he turned his back and he let them nail his son to the cross for you and me. So our outburst of rage and wrath is no way to justify it, because no one can do something that's so bad and so unforgivable that you have to be so enraged that you pull yourself away from God. Because that's what it's all about. Our relationship with God is more important than not looking weak to people and trying to prove a point to people. And I think that's the biggest problem that we have. We want to prove we're not a punk. And I think we all deal with that because we feel like if we let somebody buy with something, it makes us weak. But it doesn't. Then we do a disservice to ourselves because we impede the progress of the true mission that Jesus set before us. Because we say that we believe in Jesus Christ. We say it's just like people that speak of God and say, I know God, I have a relationship with God, I pray to God. But then you can have an outburst, like a Don Lemon, for example. He went on a rant trying to defend Joy Reid and he told Megyn Kelly to go, F off. Now, he says he believes in God. He says he's spiritual. At the end of the day, how do we say we believe in Christ? Christ never dealt with anybody, the Pharisees, the Sadducees. He never spoke to them in a bad, negative way. He never tried to make them feel his wrath. He always just told them the truth, and then he went on about his business. Whether they received it or not was up to them. So our rage and our anger, it does nothing for the kingdom. And these works of the flesh, they impede the progress of the kingdom. But you can't stop God's plan for being brought to fruition. The only thing you do is you put yourself in a position where you don't have room to talk. You lose credibility to speak for the cause of the kingdom. And then therein lies the regret. Because when God takes his hand off of our life, it becomes a mess. Because I want to ask you a few questions. Who will save us if not Jesus? What good is our power and resources in death? What policies and laws will give us lasting joy or life? Will our anger change hearts or make them more deceitful? Because in Jeremiah chapter 17, verse 9 in the Message Bible, Jeremiah spoke this way. He said, the heart is hopeless, hopelessly dark and deceitful, a puzzle that no one can figure out. But I, God, search the heart and examine the mind. I get to the heart of the human. I get to the root of things. I treat them as they really are, not as they pretend to be. So I'm spiritual. I'm spiritual, not religious. God deals with the heart. Because if you're spiritual, it's no way. I don't care how ignorant Donald Trump is. I don't care what he says and does. You are not spiritual if you allow yourself to indulge and stoop to the level of Donald Trump. By, oh, this man, he's this, he's that. But they elected him. At the end of the day, he is the president of the United States for the second time within the last 4 years. This is going to be his second term in office. And we are so angry about that we miss making sure our heart is right, because God is searching our heart. He's examining each individual heart. He's not examining Donald Trump and then deciding to say, okay, Donald Trump did this. You have every right for your outburst of anger, your wrath, your disdain, your indignation. You have every right to express that. He doesn't give us that right. So when we unleash the beast, so to speak, though it feels good in the moment, but when we have time to calm down, the regret will have you giving an empty apology. Because that's what happens too. You have to come out and you have to publicly make an apology. And when you make that public apology, have you really sat with yourself and dealt with that sinful part of you, that sinful nature, and said, you know what? I am a representative of Christ. I had no business acting like this. If someone has to force you to give an apology, it's empty. So in order to deal with the works of the flesh, we must deal with the fact that we have misrepresented God. Because in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 16 through 20, it says, because of this decision, we don't evaluate people by what they have or how they look. We looked at the Messiah that way once and got it all wrong. As you know, we certainly don't look at him that way anymore. Now we look inside, and what we see is that anyone united with the Messiah gets a fresh start. It's created new. The old life is gone. A new life emerges. Look at all this comes from the God who settled the relationship between us and him, and then called us to settle our relationships with each other. God put the world square with himself through the Messiah, giving the world a fresh start by offering forgiveness of sin. God has given us the task of telling everyone what he is doing. We're Christ's representatives. God uses us to persuade men and women to drop their differences and enter into God's work of making things right between them. We're speaking for Christ himself now. Become friends with God. He's already a friend with you. So, in our outburst of rage and anger, how many people would really want to be friends with you if that's our answer to everything? Anger, aggression, frustration. And it's understandable. But those who are wise, they know how to step back. They know how to deal with what's going on around them. And they go to the source to get power. They're not trying to eke out power from other people by draining them of energy. Because that's what we're doing. We're draining ourselves and then we drain others because we always have negativity to spread. In our anger, it's always negativity. And it just drains you and it drains other people. Because we wonder, when is this gonna stop? Like, when is racism gonna stop? When are police officers gonna stop killing black people? When are white people gonna stop trying to block black people from reaching their full potential? Those are all questions that we have. And in that outburst of rage, of trying to get people to understand who we are, they can't understand us because in our rage, we're not balanced. We're not in a good headspace. We're not stable. We're not saying things that people can take in and absorb and really try to get the gist of what you're talking about. When you say, hey, we've been marginalized, and then you have people who say, well, there are some successful black people. Well, that goes to show you that it's not about success. Because, and it's not about us understanding that everything is not for everybody. So when we look at some people, some black people who are successful, that jealous work of the flesh rises up. And you know what it tells us? They sold out. And they probably did. But how much integrity will be found in our outburst? And if somebody just gives us something just because they want us to shut up? Because that's what happens a lot of times. They want us to shut up, so they just give us crumbs. And we think they're answering our cry. But the thing is, they can't. We're crying out to the wrong people. We're crying out to man when we should be crying out to God. But God has already offered us so much. He offered us life and life more abundantly. But we're down here fighting and stressing ourselves out to have a life of the material kind. Not life that's lasting, where dust and moth can't overtake it. Because TVs get old, they get dirty. Furniture gets old, it gets dirty. It wears down. And we're fighting for something that wears down. Cars get dirty, they get old. They break down sometimes. Houses get old. Over time, everything breaks down, gets dusty. Moth eats at it. It decays over time. Money runs out. We're constantly hearing that eventually currency is going to lose its value, and it already pretty much has. Because if you think about it, $20 is like $1 now. Back in the days, if you had $5, you thought you had some money, because $5, $20, $30, it went a long way. $100 is like $5 now. It doesn't have any value. It doesn't stretch as long as it used to. So we need to value our friendship with God more than we value the things that we think we can gain here on this earth. If you have the respect of men, that is great, that is awesome. But that comes with you deciding that you're going to walk with God and you're going to walk in the Spirit, and God will make your enemies your footstool. They won't be able to fight you. They won't be able to do anything with you because God will not allow evil to touch his anointed. So guys, let's reprogram our thinking. Let's get back to love. Let's recover the life that the devil tried to take from us each and every day. And most importantly, you don't remember nothing else. Remember this. God may not be there when you want him, but he'll be there in the nick of time. I love you guys. Peace. And I'm out until next time. Oh, hit that like and subscribe button, please. And share this video. Don't keep it to yourself.